What's the good word, Josh? Your boy DKB here. So I was just wrapping up things at the office, was getting ready to head home. A report fired across my phone that the Johnson family has no intention of firing General Manager Joe Douglas, head coach Robert Saleh, or any of the offensive, let's just leave it to the coaching staff, any of the coaching staff as well, right? The season is essentially a mulligan, and we are going to see this entire unit return, right? And so I found that particularly interesting because we've known the Johnsons, specifically Woody, to not be that patient of a man, right? And for situations that have been far less successful than what we've seen so far, right? You still point to the number one wide receiver, the underrated tight end unit, the various offensive line members from draft classes that we haven't had to purchase, but we've been able to develop in-house that look great. Granted, they can't stay on the field. The defensive line that's deep enough that our second and third string units would be starters and high-end second-tier players on other teams. The at least top three rated linebacker duo in the NFL, the best trio of cornerbacks in the NFL, and then at least part of a safety tandem in Tony Adams that looks pretty solid with still a lot of momentum to excel. And a special teams unit that's played out of their minds considering how bad the offense has been. Same thing with the defense. So it was interesting. I had to figure out where this was coming from. And, Connor Hughes was actually the name that popped up that shared this. From what I've seen, some of the quotes were, and let me try to find it again real quick. But basically, he says, "From my patience is not a virtue shared by Woody and Christopher Johnson. From my understanding, that cannot be further from the truth. There's absolutely no intention from the Johnson brothers to make a change. The two guys and their staff are going to be back in 2024." And so a little disappointing, right? I've been on record. I've mentioned I'd like to see some actual changes, right? Regardless of Aaron Rodgers being here, how we sold out to have a successful 2023 and Aaron Rodgers going down 4 snaps into the season derailed a lot of that. You always have to consider the future, right? We've seen plenty of former regimes have a discourse, right? So, head coach may be in win now mode after having a terrible debut season. The general manager on a fresh contract, they're looking towards the future. They're making moves that don't synchronize well with each other, right? And I want to put this out there for the record. I am not against this by any means. In fact, I really do like Robert Saleh. I have to understand what his limitations are. He's going to be an elite defensive head coach for the most part. We're probably going to have a bit of an undisciplined team, but you're going to have a defense that you wouldn't really trade out for too many others, right? You may look at a team like the Ravens. You may look at the team like maybe the 49ers, and you can make your arguments. But for the most part, you're going to field an elite defense. Offensively, he has nothing to do with this, right? I mean, I thought at one point, based on what I've heard commentation wise, in press conference and stuff, it seems like he had maybe a better grip of how modern offenses work as opposed to his predecessors, right? Todd Bowles, Rex Ryan, they never really gave you anything to feel like they not only understood what was happening on the offensive side of their football team, but also that they would be able to successfully work with their offensive coordinators to get it fixed instead of just, bitching and moaning basically about the state of the team. I'm not as confident in that anymore, which means that the success of Robert Saleh becoming a household name in New York is going to be dependent on him successfully hiring offensive coordinators. And the biggest gripe that I have with him right now is it seems like he lets his personal relationships get in the way of, I guess the best way to put it is generally regarded solid moves, right? You bring in Mike LaFleur, your friend over Kyle Shanahan, because the brother with the Packers, Matt, has that connection, right? It doesn't work so well. Now, not to say that LaFleur was the only problem, anything like that. We've opened that can of worms before, but ultimately, it's clear who was better. And for what it's worth, LaFleur did get picked up immediately by the Rams, who were supposed to look like a awful team this year. And while he's not calling plays, he is still the offensive coordinator over there. And they don't look too shabby, right? Or I don't think he's the actual offensive coordinator. Scratch that. I think it's still Ben Johnson, if I'm remembering actually. Ben Johnson's with the Lions. Scratch the whole thing. LaFleur is with the Rams as an OC, and they don't look too bad whatsoever. Then you go to Nathaniel Hackett, who you had ties with before, and if I remember correctly, the ties go way back to his days in Jacksonville. So you haven't really, touched bases and seen what's all been going on there. And recency bias doesn't look great either because he couldn't finish his full year with the Broncos, which is starting to look continually worse. And you're even having some of the players come out, like Cameron Sutton, and shifting blame away from why am I drawing blanks on the names? But shifting blame away from the quarterback and placing it in the hands of Nathaniel Hackett, who was the head coach at the time. So, and then of course you have the recent drama we talked about with Joe Beningo and the leaked bullcrap reports there. So it's long, point blank, period. I am excited to see what this looks like, though, right? You have a second year that you can go all in on Aaron Rodgers' plan. This time, you don't kind of have the arm bar of having to worry about bringing in a ton of Packers personnel. I know Gunny made great points about Bakhtiari potentially coming over to help field a successful offensive line for this New York Jets team. He made some valid points. It is what it is. But this has to feel like it's the last straw, right? Johnson, Woody didn't want to issue a playoff mandate last year. This feels like dead man walking territory at this point. If this report is true, he absolutely has to reach the playoffs. And it's not just a playoff and you're good. He has to go out there and make some noise, right? We have to basically be an AFC championship contender at minimum, I would feel like, for his job to be safe, because not only are you betting on Aaron Rodgers taking you to the promised land, we still have to think about life after. So this offseason is going to be critical for a number of factors. What's the best team that we can place around Aaron Rodgers right now? Not only that, though, how do you continue to extend that success, right? Zach Wilson's supposed to be that olive branch for Aaron Rodgers. That doesn't look like it's going to be the narrative moving forward, although there is a case to still keep him on the roster. But, there's a lot more questions than answers right now, as usual with the New York Jets. But for those that did want to see us run it back and hopefully actually see what a team fielded by Aaron Rodgers is going to look like, you have your wish. I will point in there, I did see a very interesting video, right? Just quickly as we wrap up. There was some players, they were talking about football, and I can't remember the guys or anything, excuse me. But basically they were saying how veteran quarterbacks don't listen to offensive coordinators really whatsoever, right? That's not their job. They can go out there and run an offense entirely by themselves. At this point, they're just getting the play call, and then, they can still check and alter and do whatever else they want to do. And so you still have questions about how impactful is Nathaniel Hackett actually going to end up being next year. But ultimately, I'll leave this with you guys. It seems like the coaching staff will be back, at least according to Hughes. Let me know what you guys think about it, and I'll catch you again. Peace.